Hey y'all, Chelsea and Danny here.
Enjoy this episode of Today's Homeowner here on YouTube.
Now, if you have a deck around your home that's looking like this, we've got a great solution for you on this week's show.
Today's Homeowner with Danny Lipford. Real projects for real homeowners with real solutions. Information and inspiration on improving your home from professional remodeler Danny Lipford.
Now, at first glance, this deck really doesn't look too bad. But when you really start looking at it, a lot of peeling paint, a number of nails that are popping up, and really there's a number of areas that are downright dangerous. Well, the homeowners here in San Diego decided to replace all of this with something a little bit different than wood. They did their research, looked on the internet, they went to all the building supply stores, and they decided on a composite deck material that will allow them to replace this deck and not have to worry about it for many, many years. And the material they selected will not require any finish at all. So that means very little maintenance. Now, we'll look at this process from start to finish on removing this deck, replacing it all in this week's show. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to the show. As you can see, we're well underway with the demolition on this deck project. Now, originally the deck was built using a non-treated framing wood, and then on top they used redwood, which is extremely common for decks here in the California area. Now, most of the structure will be completely removed, but we found that the 6x6 posts are in great shape, have a good foundation under them. All of that will be fine. We'll be able to reuse that. And then we'll be coming back in with all treated wood for the framework and then the composite decking on top of that. Now, our homeowner here, Scott Woodward's been really involved in making the right decision for the type of composite material he wants to use. Let's talk with him. Well, Scott, I know you've been waiting for this day to start out.
You bet, Danny. When we bought the house a little less than 2 years ago, we knew the deck was going to have to be replaced. So, and we've been, making a lot of decisions, and we're really excited to be getting started.
When I'm talking about decisions, that's one of the most frustrating things for homeowners because you have to decide, find a contractor, you've got to decide on the material and decide on the whole scope of work. Tell us kind of how that worked out for you.
What we wanted was a deck that would, pretty much be maintenance-free for many, many years. We wanted to make sure that everything was solid underneath so that it had a good foundation. Fortunately, our contractor, Chris, did some investigation underneath here and found out that we had quite a few rotten timbers under here. So we're replacing everything underneath with pressure treated and give us a good solid foundation.
Well, that's great. I understand also on the main 6x6 beam here that realized there's some damage on that. So that's kind of one of those bad surprises, I guess.
Yeah, we were afraid, now looking at this, I'm thinking it was actually a safety issue here. So we're really, really happy that, that we're going to get it all done and get it done solidly.
Okay, now as far as the choosing of the composite material, because you decided early not to worry about any kind of wood surface like you have now for more long term, but there's so much composite material out there with, looking on the internet, looking in the building supply places. How did you narrow that choice down?
Well, actually went out to some lumber yards and looked at the different materials and the finishes, and we chose a tongue and groove, so it's kind of got a neat look. It looks sort of like a floor in a a house almost, as opposed to a deck with the gaps.
And a little bit of wood grain on it, I guess.
Yeah. So it's got a kind of a wood look, and no finish required.
Good. That's great. So that's a little more maintenance-free, a little more time to entertain and have a little fun. I'm really anxious to see exactly what you chose.
Well, Kevin, I'll have to say it really does look like real wood.
Good, thank you. One of the things we tried to do as we designed our product is we wanted to keep that look of wood. And we put a wire brushing finish on our product which gives it that nice textured look and still allows people to think it looks like wood.
And I like the design where you, after the tongue and groove pieces go together, you really have the smaller boards instead of the more traditional wide deck board look. That's really appealing.
Right, what we tried to do is we tried to get away from having something that everybody else had, and that was a 5/4 or a 2x6. We designed a product to look more like an indoor floor for the outside.
Yeah,
and then the nice tongue and groove also gives that concealed fastener.
A little bit of structural strength there as well on that
Exactly.
stability. Now, we talk about composite materials all the time now, a big part of construction, but on this particular project, what exactly makes up the composite nature of it?
Well, it's a combination of oak, sawdust, and polyethylene plastic.
Okay.
Majority of the product is the wood content. and then we also add the polyethylene too,
Okay.
which binds it all together.
Why not solid like a regular piece of wood? Why do you have it ribbed like that?
On this product, there's two reasons. One, composites have a tendency to be heavy. We take out some weight by not making it a solid. Makes it easier for the contractor to handle. And also, this gives it strength. This beam here in the center gives it strength, which allows it to go 24 inches on center.
Okay, all right. Now after this is installed out in the California sun, what will it look like in a few months? What, as far as weathering, what can someone expect with this?
Composites in general will turn like a driftwood gray. Our natural product turns that color. This is actually our gray color that's got some pigments in it that immediately makes it that gray. It'll weather like a vinyl siding will weather or a paint weathers. It just fades a little bit, but it'll keep its gray color.
Okay, all right. Now, what about any type of trim pieces? You know, a lot of times we build decks and the banding board around it has to be something else. Do you have anything that complements this?
Yes, we do. That was kind of one of the biggest knocks about composites is we didn't have those finishing pieces. And we have what we call our fascia board, which just would allow the homeowner, the contractor, to finish the outside of the deck, cover up their treated or redwood or whatever they're using to frame their deck. So it gives the deck that complete finished look.
And all the same properties as far
Exactly.
as the rest of the material.
Right.
I guess this is some type of, looks like a starter strip or something.
That's exactly what it is. This would be the first piece you use. You run your first screw down here, and then your next piece slides in, and away you go.
So in most installations, you're not going to see any fasteners at all?
No, the only fasteners you would see on this type of a deck is towards the end, similar to what you would have a wood floor when you get up close to the wall.
Right, okay. Well, it's going to look great once it's down on the deck, and you'll see that next. Stay with us.
Get ready to review your fix-it list as Danny and home repair expert Joe Trewini show you this week's simple solution. Brought to you by DuPont Tyvek. Build it once, build it right.
If you have a shower head in your home that seems to be very loose inside the wall and may rattle when you turn it on, the only way I know to fix it is to remove a section of the wall.
You're right, Danny. If the riser, which is the vertical pipe inside the wall, has broken completely free of the blocking and is really rattling around, the only solution is probably to open up the wall and install new wood blocking. But in this case, you see that there's only a little bit of a rattle. I can tell that it's still securely fastened, but it's enough rattle that when we turn on the water pressure, it's just an annoying sound and it might eventually break free of the blocking.
Right.
So the solution in this case is to use a product I'm sure you've seen before, which is an expanding foam caulk, which is typically used around windows and doors to seal out drafts. But what we're going to do here is we're going to squirt a generous bead of this caulk all around this pipe, and as it expands and hardens, it'll lock the pipe in place and prevent that from rattling. And immediately after spraying in the foam, push and hold the escutcheon plate tight against the wall to keep any foam from leaking out.
Now you may want to use a minimal expanding foam so that you're not over expanding the cavity and forcing the drywall right off the wall.
The manufacturer also recommends that you wear safety goggles and gloves as protection against the solvent that's in the foam. But if you try this trick, it'll solve that problem.
All of our demolition is going great on our deck project, and the person that's responsible for that and putting it all back together is Chris Easterling. Now Chris, as far as this stage in the job, usually after you have it opened up like this, you find a few surprises. I understand you found one here.
Yeah, this post was pretty rotted out and the beams were tied into it, so what we decided to do is go ahead and tear it out and put one solid one all the way down to the bottom base.
Yeah, I noticed you use an actual floor jack to jack it up in order to get the beam in place, but it looks like the foundation and all of the metal bracket and everything's in great shape.
Yeah, it's in great shape. All we need to really do here is drill the holes and put the bolts in.
Perfect. Well, that made that go a lot easier, and plus, since you're approaching this with such a long-term kind of approach, that's a perfect way to do it there. But it looks like the rest of this is in fairly good shape, but I noticed a piece of wood here that I'm pretty familiar with is a lot of termite damage. How common is that in this area?
It's about 50% of our jobs we find some type of termites. This deck didn't have too many, but what was here we went ahead and tore out so that we could start with the brand new deck.
Sure, yeah, with the level of demo that you're doing here, you're getting rid of all that old wood. Now, but found another problem here, and tell our viewers, it may not look like a problem, but tell our viewers why this is a problem.
Well, it looks like they added a bay window later on down the road on top of the deck, and there's really no support to hold it. So we're going to go ahead and put some beams and posts in here and then go ahead and tie the deck back into it.
I see, because really the load bearing should be on top of the large beam, and with all of this out here and all of the roof rafters resting on it, I mean that's just a problem waiting to happen, especially as all this other wood starts deteriorating. But looks like you'll be able to take care of that. I can see already some new work taking place here. You're moving along.
Yeah, we went ahead and tore out the old stem wall, and we're going to put a new one back in with pressure treated so that it doesn't rot out again. And then we'll be ready to put the joists back in here on top of the new beams.
Perfect. The tough thing about reframing a deck is matching the existing construction of the house and yet keeping the new deck surface level. That means the placement of the beam that runs down the middle of the deck is crucial. Often older decks like this have sagged or may have been built off level to begin with. Now is the time to correct any of those potential problems. Now on either side of the beam, the 2x6 joists are mounted to connect to the house and to the outside wall. Now the joists are installed on 16-inch centers, nailed first, then the crew comes back with the metal joist hangers to complete the installation. Well, just a little bit of repair work around the bay window area to address the problem Chris and I talked about earlier. This whole area will be ready for the new decking material. Now, if you remember earlier in the show, there was a spot right in the middle of the deck that was real spongy. That was because of the 6x6 that really had some problems. Well, now that it's replaced, that won't be a problem at all. Now, the homeowner wants to make sure that all the framing on this deck will last as long as the composite material that's going on top. Well, with all the treated wood, that won't be a problem at all. Now, the installation of the composite material is really unique in how it's done, and we'll show you that next.
Now let's join Danny at the Home Center to check out the best new products. Brought to you by the Home Depot.
There are two tools that a carpenter is never without. That's his carpenter's pencil and his tape measure. Now, many times when you see these seasoned carpenters out on the jobs, they're doing some unique things with these two tools. Let me show you one of them. Now, if you're having a rip cut where you're trying to rip along a board or say a piece of plywood, many times carpenters will grab their pencil and their tape and then run their finger right down the side of the board to create a nice uniform line that they can cut. Well, if you're not a seasoned carpenter, you'll probably end up with some splinters in your hand and probably a line that's just a little too wavy for any kind of quality work. Well, the solution is $3 away, and it's called the Pencil Boy. Now, what the Pencil Boy does is actually attaches right to the side of your tape measure, has a little adhesive strips that come with the Pencil Boy that attaches it. Then that allows you to slip your carpenter's pencil right down inside and tighten it up here so that when you're doing the same type of rip marking here, you can pull your tape measure out, lock it down just where you need it, then you can go right along just like that for a nice uniform line. Also, if you're doing any kind of radius cut where you're cutting out a circle, then you can measure half the distance of your circle, maybe put a nail there, and you're able to use the Pencil Boy to go right around to draw that radius. Even an arch can be done if you're coming off the side of your board and you're wanting to create some type of arch. So there's a lot of different ways that you can use this $3 item to make it a lot easier and to make your work look a little bit more like those experienced carpenters. And also a nice thing about it is it's a nice pencil holder. When it's sitting on your belt, you can just loosen this up and you're ready to go. Well, Chris, I see you finally getting some deck boards down here. Tell us about this process and how you got started here.
Well, what we did is we go to each end of the wall and we snap a line out about 6 inches, and then we adjust the starter strip off that 6 inches so that our decking will all be in a straight line.
Okay, all right, and then starter strip going right against the wall, screwing it in place, and then it's ready for that first board. That's where a little bit of notching usually has to take place, huh?
Yeah, we had to do a little notching up here around the gas line. It cuts really easy though.
Okay, just regular blades. You don't have anything special as far as blades or anything?
No, it works really nice.
Okay, all right. Then what about the screws here? What, zinc?
Yeah, I use a 2.5-inch zinc screw. It seems that the heads don't strip out and the screws don't break, so I found them to work really well.
Yeah, some of the galvanized screws, you have a problem with those and they'll strip out, as well as they tend to be a little thicker. That makes it a little harder for that tongue and groove to go together as well.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, what about your butt joints here? No matter what kind of decking you use, you're going to have those butt joints. How do you handle them with this type of decking?
Well, what we do is we go ahead and lay this out and try to get some type of layout where we're not wasting material. And then we try to stagger them about 4 feet each side and just continue on.
Okay, all right. Approximately how long will it take to do a deck this size? Pretty good sized deck.
It'll probably take a couple of days to lay all this and screw it off.
Okay, all right. We better get out of the way. They're going to catch up with us here.
Yeah.
Because the process of installing the deck is fairly simple, the guys are able to cover up the whole space fairly quickly, but they go through a lot of screws and really give their drills a real workout. Now with the deck boards all in place, the crew's concentrating on the perimeter of the deck and making sure it's trimmed out like it should be. Now we came out fairly lucky here in that the last deck board came right out just about even. And to cap that off and get rid of all of the tongue and groove look, contractor came up with a great idea in using the starter strip that we used against the wall, ripping that down on a table saw, then he used it to cap off this end. Then we'll use the trim boards. It's also the composite material. It'll be nailed just like that for a good finished appearance. Now on either end of the deck, they had to cut off the overhanging part of the composite material, just like you would a regular wood deck, by popping a chalk line and running the circular saw right down the side. And you can see down on this end how they're planning on trimming out these corners. Now they've put the starter strip in place. They'll come back with the T111 siding that we have here, carry it around, then the trim board, great looking appearance. They'll do the same right over here, which is a real critical part of the deck because a lot of traffic will take place right in this area. Now the next big step is the installation of all of the handrails. The pre-painted 4x4 posts to support the deck railings are inserted through the deck surface to be anchored to the framing below. The composite decking is marked and cut out the same size as the post so that they fit snugly through it. The post location layout is key to achieving even spacing for adequate support and a symmetrical look. Underneath the deck, the crew adds blocking around the post, and once the level is set from the top side, they drill pilot holes and drive long lag screws through the framing and the 4x4s. The posts are cut off at 36 inches high, and the rail sections are added. Now these have been pre-assembled and pre-painted, so they only need to be trimmed to fit and secured to the post. Nails hold it initially, then screws are added for extra strength. Finally, the 2x6 rail cap is installed to top off the railing all the way around the deck. Pre-painting the handrails really saved a lot of time, and it prevented the painter having to get up on the deck to do a lot of the painting. He'll have to do a little bit of touch-ups, but the homeowner wanted to make sure no drips of paint made it on the new decking because no finish is necessary on this type of composite decking material. Now, just a little more touch-up painting here and there, and this deck's complete. We can move the patio furniture back on, and the homeowners can start enjoying their new deck. We'll see that next.
Now let's go outside for Around the Yard. Lawn and garden tips you can use straight from the experts. Brought to you by TimberTech Engineered Decking Systems. Less work, more life.
Now I know steps and retaining walls like this really can add to that landscape budget.
Oh, Danny, they can. But you know, sometimes you've got a property where, because of the hillside, you have to use some kind of system of terracing. Now, there are some different materials that you can use for that. Timber is one way to go. It is less expensive, but the problem is it's not going to last very long. So, if you can spring for it, carve out that budget, I recommend every time that you use some type of stone or brick. Now, one of the things we've discovered is that in different parts of the country, there are different types of native stone. So if you can actually go out there and find some of that, you not only build a wall that will last your entire lifetime and beyond, but it's gorgeous and it reflects where you live.
Now, it's very expensive because of being so labor intensive,
Yeah.
but a little cheaper alternative is to pour a concrete footing, use cinder blocks, then put a stucco finish over the front of it. It is a little bit less expensive, but the main thing, you've got to build it good and strong because of the pressure of the dirt and the water that's behind the wall can be a big problem. One thing you also need to remember, these homeowners didn't, weep holes. You've got to have some holes in here to allow the water to drain out.
That's right, Danny. Another thing that we do is we put gravel behind the entire length of the wall because that takes that water, disperses it along the whole length. But you know, if you do some of those things like the gravel and the weep holes, you will build a wall that will last forever. And it's just beautiful to look at.
Well, I hope you enjoyed this week's show here in San Diego. We certainly enjoyed being here, and we made a big difference in this deck. Now, if you remember what it looked like at the start of the show, it was a redwood deck that had a lot of wear and tear on it and really needed to have something done to it. Well, the homeowners made a great choice in selecting a composite decking material to replace the wood with. Now they can spend their time kind of enjoying this California lifestyle instead of having to worry about what they're going to do with the wood deck over the years. I'm glad you're with us, and I hope to see you next week. I'm Danny Lipford.
Hey, thanks for watching this episode of Today's Homeowner. And don't forget to comment, like, and hit the bell icon so that we can notify you when new videos are posted.
And don't go anywhere, click around and continue the home improving fun.